Welcome back, everyone, to the Mega Man Retrospective series, where we are looking back at 14 of the original Mega Man games. If you haven't seen the first two episodes of this series, I would highly recommend going and checking them out, as we will occasionally make reference to them, potentially throughout the video. They're available on my channel and in a playlist if you want to check them out. The year is 1988, and Mega Man 2 is released to the world on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and just 1 year after the first game. So, the first title was not a big success, sales-wise, but Capcom allowed the team to continue work on a sequel as more of a side project, with unused content from 1 and a decent reuse of some of the old assets from 1 as well. The result was a game that solidified Mega Man as an iconic character in the gaming sphere. It was a critically acclaimed game that hit sales numbers the original could honestly only dream of. Mega Man 2 is a game I often see listed as some of people's favorites among the original games, and honestly, I can see why that would be. His mechanics and music that come from this title are associated with the Mega Man brand still today, well over 30 years later. It sets us up with a title screen that I would not be surprised if it's possibly one of the first things you think of when you think of Mega Man. That windswept haired boy standing on top of a tall building, looking out over a city. It's a very striking title screen that has often been paid homage to across other forms of media. But what really sticks in your brain with this title screen is the music. The slow, calm start, that build as we pan up and up the building to reveal our hero as it all kicks in. I've often seen people who have actually never even played the game before say that this title sequence just gives off vibes of nostalgia. I really think they nailed this on every front. Now, you may have noticed during my kind of non-stop praising of the title screen that this game has a difficulty option, something that was not present in the first title. Now, you may ask, Millie, why are you bringing up difficulty options? You know, they're not very interesting or new. Well, in this case, the difficulty choice has a little story behind it. If you take a look at the Japanese title screen for Rockman 2, you'll notice that it has no difficulty choice at all. Why have I got my headphones on? I don't know why I just have my headphones on then. It's like a weird habit of mine. I take them off. It's silly that I have my headphones on. I don't know why I have them on. Taking them off. This is because for the English release of the game, which came out after the Japanese version, they decided to add an easier mode to the game. Now, what makes this confusing is that normal mode is actually an easier mode that gives you higher damage and enemies have lower health, and difficult is the default normal mode of the Japanese release. Confused? I'll just make it simple. If you want to experience the original difficulty of the game, then you pick difficult. If you want a more relaxed experience, then go for normal. Me personally, I say go with difficult. Normal for me makes the game just look like a bit too easy, and it kind of really feels like the game was balanced around the difficult option. Of course, you do whatever is best for you so that you can actually enjoy yourself. While we're on the topic of changes between the Japanese and English version, I want to talk to you about the name of the game. We already know that these games go by Rockman in Japan because of what I explained in previous videos. But did you know that they also have subtitles? Rockman 2 Dr. Wily no Nazo, or Rockman 2 The Mystery of Dr. Wily, is the original title of this game. And from this point on, all of the numbered Mega Man titles, or Rockman titles, will be given subtitles in Japanese. I really feel like it hits a bit harder when you get the full title rather than just simply the number 2. Right. So this intro has gone like really long-winded, and there's a lot more to go in this video. And I don't even know if like future me while I'm editing has actually like cut in something yet that I might have missed while writing all this. But the truth is, I just have a lot to say about the story outside of this game. If you're still here, then congratulations, you made it. It is now finally time to begin our full breakdown of Mega Man 2. Taking a look in the manual for the game, there's zero story for this title. But the Japanese manual does have a short story piece for us. Thanks to the efforts of the super robot Rockman created by Dr. Wright, the mysterious scientific genius Dr. Wily's mad desires of global domination were halted and peace was restored to the world. However, in spite of the massive blow he received, Dr. Wily has sent out 8 terrible robots to once again challenge Rockman in a brand new battle. So, who are we fighting this time around? 8 new Robot Masters. 2 more than the first title. Also, the first Robot Masters built specifically by Wily himself. As in 1, they were actually all built by Light, but then reprogrammed by Wily. As they are built by Wily, they don't actually serve a purpose outside of trying to kill Mega Man. However, later games and supplementary information will retroactively add little details about these Robot Masters, often giving them tasks to perform like the original 6 did in the first game. And one of my favorite sources of this information comes from a very, very poorly translated database of all the series Robot Masters from the game Mega Man in base. So I'm going to kind of be sprinkling that info across the video and possibly future videos. If you do enjoy that, let me know. If you think it's just adds too much fluff, then maybe I might get rid of it. Meet our first Robot Master of the game, Metal Man. Metal Man is the first robot that Dr. Wily created and was apparently designed after Cutman. His good points are he's a quick worker and he likes frisbees. His bad points are shady business, so I guess he's into shady business or something, or he enjoys doing shady business. Like I said, this is a very poor translation. And he also hates dogs. I guess since they steal his frisbees. If you need to know anything about this game, know this. Metal Man's power, the Metal Blade, is insanely broken. It can be fired off in 8 directions, it does very good damage, it travels through enemies, and 4 of the 8 Robot Masters are weak to it, including Metal Man himself. That's right, it's so incredibly good that even Metal Man himself can't handle it. We'll be using it constantly during this playthrough. It makes a lot of the enemies far easier to handle, and the 8-way shot is honestly nearly impossible to pass up. So the first thing you will notice about this level are the moving floor segments. Now, if you watch my Mega Man Powered Up video, you'll recognize these from Time Man's level. Of course, this was the first time they actually appeared, but it was a fun thing to see them included in the remake of the first game. We're also very quickly introduced to a new mechanic of this game, E-Tank. You hold up to, I think, 4 in this game. It's either 4 or 5. They can be used to refill your health to max whenever you want, so long as you have one. Just make sure you have them before you get a game over, because they take them away from you if you run out of lives. It's a really, truly horrible feature that I will forget about later in this recording. Crushing spikes and falls are the only real hazard in this level. The moving floor often working in tandem with them to either fling you off the level or underneath a spike trap. We meet these little drill things called mole. They're great for farming health for energy, but you need to be careful not rushing past them as they come in very large numbers and will easily eat away at your health. Best to take it slow so they don't pop out from under your feet and just slowly move forward. When we get the Leaf Shield later, these just become a non-issue. We also have a strange gear-riding pink thing that I kind of always thought looked like bunnies. But now I'm like looking at the footage. They don't really look like bunnies at all. Maybe I was getting them mixed up with the battery mascot, the Energizer Bunny. I think it's the Energizer Bunny. Is it Duracell or is it Energizer? One of the two. Their actual names are Pyrobot, and they apparently just don't want to go on without their gear, so they just kind of jump to their death if you destroy it. The wonderfully named Blocky, which of course consists of 3 blocks stacked on top of each other. They can be a bit tricky if you don't know where to stand, as they throw themselves at you when you hit the face. I kind of make it look easy here, but truthfully, I just got very lucky with placement, as they usually hit me. Finally, we have Springhead, probably the cutest enemies in the game. They seem very slow until you land on the same platform as them, and then they just speed up very fast. Like most things in the game, they do a lot of contact damage to you, so just be very careful. I think you can destroy them, but it takes a specific weapon. I think it's Leaf Shield, but don't quote me on that. This is a very short level. Looking back at it now, anyway, because we're already facing down our first boss, Metal Man. I mentioned before his weakness is Metal Blade, but a lot of the bosses in this also have a secondary weakness, such as Quick Boomerang on this boy. The secondary weaknesses are often not as damaging as the main weakness, but they can still be effective if you run out of energy for the first one. We don't have any of this lad's weaknesses, so Buster Shots it is. I went in with low health, so I lost my first match. I tend to do this quite a lot if I go in with low health. As boss weapon energy doesn't refill on death, it's kind of often better to try with the Buster first if you're on half health or lower, and then take a death so as to not waste your weapons, and then find yourself fighting the boss without any way to use his weakness. Metal Man can at first seem a bit intense with the amount of projectiles he throws. Typically it's a case of jumping over one blade so the others go over you, or if the others go high, you stay low and then jump over the last one. It's very much about reacting in the moment, and that just takes time to get good at. Trust me, you'll feel like Neo dodging bullets when you get it right. The real pain here comes with the floor shifting directions. If it's pushing you into the wall, it's great. If it pulls you towards Metal Man, then my whole strategy just goes out the window, and I usually get hit a bunch. Plus, it gets harder to hit him as you're facing away trying to run backwards. Either way, we get this boss down on our second try, and then we just run along to the next fight. With Metal Blade acquired, the world is our oyster. We could go to 3 of the bosses and take them down easily. However, I have a specific order I like to go in to help make a difficult platforming section later on in the game a lot easier. So, with my plan in mind, we head towards Robot Master number 2, Woodman. Woodman is a robot fully made from wood, which I can't really see any advantage of myself. Is Wily trying to make some kind of environmental message? Like, possibly? Maybe he just kind of wanted to see what would happen, which is probably more likely. His good point is he's a naturalist, which, with the way this is translated, kind of makes it sound like he just enjoys walking around naked. And he also likes mountaineering. Hopefully not naked. His bad point is his touchy disposition. Probably, because the whole being made from wood thing. So, just don't bring it up. And he dislikes harm to nature. I'm actually kind of glad this is all added to his profile retroactively, because it just kind of makes him seem like a dude who enjoys the natural world, but is just a bit sensitive to his wood-based nature. And then we just kind of have to go in and blow him up. Get ready, Woodman. I got my saw blade, and I'm coming to ruin your life. I really like the background to this level. The forest disappearing into the background is just extremely charming to me. We have bubble bats hanging in the trees that are immune to all damage until they unfurl their little wings and then very slowly fly at you. Seriously, they are so slow. What is their plan if they reach us? Like, slowly just fly into us until we get annoyed by them? They're not alone, however. They are backed up on the ground by the terrifying Robo Rabbit. I think these are what I picture the cog enemies from Metal Man as, occasionally. I'd get the two mixed up in my head. Their main attack is just hurling carrots at you as they slowly hop forwards. Truly, they are the kings of the forest. The level then transitions into a series of caves underground where we meet up with 3 sets of giant dog robots. Living up to their name of Hot Dog, they shoot out lines of fire that travel in an arc upwards. For the most part, you can position yourself out of their range and then just angle metal blades at them. But if you need to get up close, make sure to jump late, as the attack is quite long, and going early will just end up having you catch the tail end of the fire trail. After taking out the dogs, we emerge from the cave up in the treetop canopy. Up here, we face off against these mecha monkey dudes that, if you get too close, will jump out from underneath the platform at you. We don't do any of that, and we just kind of hit them with a nice angled metal blade. The birds overhead are called Pippi, and drop eggs full of their kids at you. If you take out the bird or the egg early, you can kind of avoid the wave of bird children that come after you, and then just move on. But, and hear me out here, if you keep the camera rolling, you can let that egg hit the ground, and then suddenly you got 6 more opportunities to get health and energy drops. Is that a little psychotic? Possibly. But, don't tell me those drops aren't satisfying to see. We eventually go back into the cave and emerge down into the forest. It's a nice flowing transition of areas across the level, and generally kind of feels like you've journeyed through an actual area by the end. It's something I find personally just very charming, like I said before. Right before the end, we face a stampede of atomic chickens. Now, these don't stop spawning so long as you stay on the screen, so it's a good idea to always be moving forward. The trick here is to not jump, as usually they always jump over your head first. I don't super trust this, so I tend to shoot them to make sure. But either way, don't jump or you'll always get hit. At the end of this forest adventure, we face down the insecure Woodman. His primary weakness is listed as Metal Blade, but I find Atomic Fire, which we don't actually have yet, is the most effective against him. So I don't like Woodman. I find it extremely difficult to not take damage against him. He creates a shield of leaves around himself that stops you doing damage until it's fired at you. Jumping this ring of leaves has some very tight timing that I honestly still, to this day, mess up quite often. On top of this is a set of leaves that will fall down on you from above with this swinging sort of back and forth pattern. I cannot dodge these. For years I have tried, and they get me every single time. If I come into this boss without a certain amount of health, it is just a guaranteed death for me, as I'm taking hits every time. You get a short window to hit Woodman after this, as he jumps towards you, and then you just do it all over again. It's a lot more traditional video game boss than most other Mega Man bosses. A lot of the Mega Man bosses are cases of just getting in hits at every moment, but this one requires you to go through the cycle until it's weak to damage. Not so much a complaint or anything, just an interesting observation, you know? Woodman slaps us about a bit, but we get him down, and we get his weapon, the Leaf Shield. The very strong-sounding Airman is up next. Anyone with a name like Airman sounds like they control my ability to breathe, so, you know, I find that quite intimidating. Airman has a big old propeller in his chest, which, you know, if you couldn't guess, lets him create strong gusts of wind. Should have called him Windman, to be honest. His good point is putting on airs. Okay, yeah, I see what you did there. All right. And his bad point is windy talk. Really? Do you think Airman wrote this himself? Do you think he thinks he's a bit of a comedian? There's only room for one of them, mate. Okay. He likes surfing, which, you know, makes sense. And dislikes the fall of the leaf. Oh, yeah, right, because Leaf Shield is his weakness. That makes sense, actually. Wow, I only just got that. You know what? Let's just move on from that pun-filled nightmare, and let's get into the next stage. Airman's stage is up in the sky, where apparently they have built some kind of ninja warrior cores for Mega Man. I really got to wonder what the budget is for Wily on these evil schemes. Diamond Man? Who shoots diamonds that explode into smaller diamonds? We start off carefully crossing over these large red floating heads called Air Tiki. That's Tiki with 2 Ks, in case you were wondering. So that would make them one of these food items instead of a Tiki head. Their main weapon are these 2 drill-looking spikes that slowly rise up and down from their head. And they also spawn in these little orange gremlins from their ears? Seriously, what is the purpose of these things? The big trick here is getting the timing right between knowing when to jump after the spikes have gone down, but not getting caught by the little orange dudes and falling to your death. It used to cause me a big headache, but as you can see here, I've got it down pretty good. Or you can just, you know, take a hit from the spike and use Mega Man's iframes to just skip over the whole issue. You jump over quite a few of these guys, and it can be a bit annoyingly slow, waiting for the spikes to slowly retract before moving on. But we're patient, you know, we're patient people, and we persevere. The next section reminds me of the floating shooting platforms from the first game, except vastly improved in every single way. The random movement is gone, replaced with good old, predictable circular movements. The only real danger here are the Zeus-looking buggers taking a ride. They're called Lightning Lord, and if you have Metal Blade, then you just angle a shot and you kill them before they can even react. Unless you get a cheeky one like I did here, who just wanted to get the last laugh and threw a bolt out at me as he died, just to catch me, so I fall to my death. Thanks, buddy. It's a short and simple section. Over to the next part where we get the return of the egg-dropping birds, but now they are hidden in the clouds above. It's a pretty good use of the theme to add a new spin on these bird parents who, you know, just really definitely should not be allowed to have kids. We get a section here that I don't really like, as it involves wandering around in the clouds until you find a hidden drop-down to the next part. It's not super intuitive to me personally, so it's probably the weakest part of the level. Oh, can't forget the squirm enemies here. They just kind of sit there spewing out blue worms, and it's pretty gross. I already got nothing more to say about these things. They just kind of disgust me. The last dude worth mentioning here is Fan Fiend. He looks like a wide-load Mega Man with a fan shoved into his chest. I always thought of these guys as fake-out airmen, you know, kind of like the little Kraids in Metroid. They live up to their fan part of their name and just kind of blow you away. Couple of blades to the face, and we're off to the big cheese of this area. Airman, weak to the power of leaves. I guess they clog up his fans or something. So I hear many people call this one of the easiest Robot Masters, and admittedly, in my footage, yeah, he does die so fast that I'm gonna have to loop it over while we're talking. To me, this is one of the worst of the 8 Robot Masters. He blows you back of his fan constantly and fires off a wave of little twisters. The problem here is that the way the projectiles get laid out is a bit random, leading to like loads of moments where you just can't avoid the attacks. Really don't like things like this in games where learning to dodge attacks is kind of like a big part of the mastery. So when you take that away, it annoys me. Worse still, you can't hit him while the projectiles are in the way. Gotta wait for the attack to finish, and then he moves before you can actually go in on him. Like Woodman, if I got into this fight with under a certain amount of health, I'm usually gonna die from unavoidable damage. This time, however, he dies super fast, and it makes my whole point I just made here seem like nonsense. Thanks, Airman. Thanks for that. Great. We get the air shooter from him, and we also get a new utility item. I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about the item weapons in this game. New to Mega Man 2, these are weapons in the sense that they have an energy meter, you know, like other weapons, and you also get them from specific bosses. Except these are not used to attack enemies, rather they're used to aid in traversal of levels. Item 1 creates platforms that slowly rise up and disappear after a set time. Item 2 creates a rocket-powered platform that moves forward until it runs out of energy or space. We really like Item 2 here. It's a good one. Finally, Item 3 creates a bouncing platform that, if it ever touches a wall, will slowly climb upwards. I personally find them to be a fun and creative expansion of Mega Man's skills, especially with the button limitations on the NES. Big old thumbs up from me. Number 4 on our list of robot bosses is Crash Man. Why is he called Crash Man? Well, according to this poorly translated info, he uses a drill-type bomb called the Crash Bomber. Are you feeling informed? I bet you are. He's apparently very forthright, but also awkward, which to me just reads that he's not great at social cues. He likes crushing buildings, I mean that checks out, and he dislikes recycling. So basically just loves destroying things, but if you try to reuse any of that destruction for something else, then he'll just freak out. Seems like a really level-headed dude that really greatly contributes to society. Craftsman Stage has a theme of what I can only really describe as the old Windows 95 3D pipe screensaver. If you don't understand this reference, please don't tell me or I will feel old. This is our first mostly vertical level of the game, so, you know, expect many ladders. What says Crash Man more than ladders? Nothing. That's what. We meet a new enemy called Telly, a floating head that usually appears in groups of 3. These enemies are the type that as long as you remain on the screen with them, they'll just keep respawning. The only real danger with these guys is letting them get into positions that make it awkward to get around them with their group attack tactics. Group attack tactics? That was not a good combo of words to write there. Their group attack tactics. Okay. As for pretty much all the enemies in this game, Metal Blade is king with its directional aiming. So slice away and move along, well, they'll just never stop appearing. We meet the new and improved Metal? How'd you say that? Metal? We meet the new and improved Metal from the first game, now called Neo Metal. Great name, by the way. These guys keep to the standard shoot and hide, but now they can actually run towards you after firing a shot. Big improvement here, obviously. We get to the first of the moving platform sections. There are 3 of these going up in complexity each time. Nothing really to do here other than just ride the platforms and shoot the telly dudes who keep appearing to knock you off. The rest of the level is a series of ladder climbs upwards, until we are just suddenly in space. Seriously, what is with this level? You might recognize this enemy from Powered Up. It's Crazy Cannon, and he does nothing at all here because we're just going to go behind him. Poor dude. Probably waited a really long time for this moment, and he hasn't really got any arms, so he's definitely not climbing out of here anytime soon. The only other obstacles here are more bird eggs trying to knock you off the ladder as you climb up, and the hopping spring guy is called Prop Tops. They're another one of those never stop spawning enemies. Good for farming, though. Boss time, everyone. The build-up to Crashman has been incredible. Epic climb into space to fight the enemy of recycling, and it's over. Oh, whoops. Yeah, this guy's weakness, the air shooter, does massive damage. I think it's because it shoots out 3 projectiles at once, so if you get the positioning right, he takes a hit from all 3. His attacks are the standard jump about and shoot. He'll angle his crash bombs down at you as he jumps, which, you know, if you were more skilled than me, you can actually dodge around. That's about it for Crashman. He died as he lived. Crashing? Bubbleman is up next, and according to this little info panel here, he was the first humanoid robot in the whole universe created for underwater battles. Seems like a very bold claim, but I don't have the facts to dispute it. Good points are his bubbly personality. God, more puns, really. And his bad points are that he's a lavish spender. So, you know, maybe just don't open a joint account with them. Shield your eyes, people. This background is blinding. Look, I have to compliment the team for the very cool idea of having you cross a waterfall, but I also have to take away a few points for making my eyes bleed when I look at it. The croaker, big frog, shoots little frogs out of it. Obviously, the real danger here are the little frogs, as they'll linger even after the big one is defeated. We have to cross a series of platforms that drop pretty much almost instantly the second you touch them, so don't linger at all, or this will happen. One more obstacle lies between you and eyeball pain freedom, the Crabot. If you play this on normal, these guys actually die instantly. But if you play it on difficult, they lose their shell at the first hit, and then they just run around really fast until you hit them again. They're very low to the floor, so most regular shots just tend to go over them. After our eyes recover from the waterfall, we head down into the water. This entire segment has spikes on the roof, and spikes in Mega Man usually equals an instant death. So you gotta be careful how high you jump. We meet the lanternfish, who fires an endless army of shrinks from its mouth. Yes, they're called shrinks. Metal Blade is a treasure here, as it will take out large amounts of the little shrimp dudes all at once. Then the level gets mean, and forces us to learn how to do small hops, or face getting impaled into the roof. There are these jellyfish enemies here, called M445, that are really barely worth mentioning. They're usually just dead before they can even reach you. You seen a theme here in this game of Metal Blade beats all? Bubbleman's room is probably the first, and maybe also the last, Robot Masters to actually have spikes inside of it. I know I could be proven wrong about that, so, you know, don't take my word for it. He's unique in that being underwater, he's kind of floats up and down instead of jumping, making his shots a bit more difficult to dodge. He also plops a bubble down below as he goes up. I usually just take the hit and then just spam attacks. Bubbleman is popped, and he gives us the skill Bubble Lead. Any guesses who comes next? That's right. We just got a water move, and so the chart of elements demands we head to the fire robot next. Heatman is here, and I always assumed he was supposed to resemble a lighter. You see that, right? The descriptions I have here is just hilariously vague. It just simply says, created from fireman. So does that mean that he's like made from the remains of fireman? Now, I don't want to get all shipper Theseus on you here, but how much of fireman is still in this Heatman? You know, either way, I guess you could choose to interpret this as the first returning Robot Master, in a way, even if he's only there in the form of some leftover pieces. I'm kind of picturing Heatman with like a JoJo-esque fireman stand. Small note, if I found a picture while editing, I will put this up on screen. If I didn't, then I'm just going to give you like a really crudely drawn one in paint instead. Enjoy. Heatman, Heatman, Heatman. How I do so loathe your level. This is the sole reason I do the orders of levels that I do, but we'll get there. I kind of get the feeling the theme of this level is the inside of a pizza oven, or at least that's how it feels traversing it. The main obstacles we face across this level are the one-block platforms, working alongside of the floating heads. I think the main problem here is working out how to balance moving along fast enough so that to not get overwhelmed by enemies, but not so fast that you end up messing up and falling. Again, Metal Blade does most of the work for you here. This level will show the return of the disappearing blocks from the first game. This game, however, really takes the difficulty and risk up quite a bit. We have this segment here where you have to travel up the disappearing blocks whilst dealing with floating heads and trying to keep track of the timing. Each wall has been a bit more risky than the last. You may notice during this section these strange looking blocks inside of each wall. Well, these are only destroyable with Crashman's weapon, which for some reason I just almost never do. I think it's just quicker to go over them, personally. Now we reach the most evil part of this level, and the reason I always need to beat Airman first in order to get item 2. This section is a ridiculously long section of disappearing blocks over a giant pit. Now, it's very possible to do. I've done it myself, covered in buckets of sweat the whole time, mind you. It isn't the hardest set of blocks like this, but it is long. And one misstep means starting all over again. So I think it's always more enjoyable to just skip it. Item 2 is our champion, as it lets us make it just over the gap, although you do have to time it just right, or you just kind of end up dying like this instead. Now with this death, it brings up a whole other issue that I have with this game, and that is the weapon energy not refilling after death. What this means is that you can end up in a position where you've used up all the weapon and item energy, and now you have no choice but to either game over, which refills your energy, or do what I had to here, and farm enemies until you get enough energy back. I really hate this mechanic. And they do change it in later games, and when they do, it makes using enemy weapons in levels feel a lot less restrictive. I actually have in the past played this title with mods that will refill energy on death, as I honestly think it makes the game far more enjoyable. That is sadly not the case here, because I wanted you to have to get that genuine horrible experience. After a very long ride over a very deep hole, we face the final obstacle here before Heatman, the sniper armor. This is basically an armored Joe riding a mech. I actually found out from chat on stream when I played this before that the air shooter just absolutely destroys these dudes. All 3 projectiles hit and it goes down instantly. Of course, after this, you're left with the armored Joe to face. He's less annoying than past games. I feel like leaving himself open longer, but he still usually ends up eating all of my health for dinner. After all these obstacles, we face Heatman, who instantly destroys us because I had almost no health. Second attempt. Bubble lead is his weakness, obviously, and it takes him out pretty fast. The basic cycle of this boss is hit him, he then becomes invincible and charges at you, you jump, he fires some fireballs into the air, and you repeat. If you're fast enough, you can avoid the fireball shooting phase and just getting stuck in a dashing back and forth, but it's quite tight timing. The only real wrinkle in this is that Heatman will change how long he waits to charge after being hit. I think he's been watching too many westerns and just kind of wants a showdown. So it leaves me on edge a lot of the time, getting ready to hammer jump when he goes, which I end up hitting too early and then getting hit. A few repeats of this and Heatman goes down. Like Airman before, Heatman not only gives us his weapon, the atomic fire, but he gives us another utility weapon in the form of item 1. The penultimate robot master is here, and it is Flashman. No, it isn't a creepy guy in a long trench coat. It's a robot with the ability to stop time. Wait, can't Time Man do that? I hear you say. Well, shut up. Okay, this guy's description is possibly the most bizarre, and I really can't help but wonder what a good translation would say. Flashman's good point is that he's a caring boss. Maybe he went on that show Undercover Boss. I don't know. He also likes cameras, which, when combined with the part in his description about sometimes making bad use of his time stop abilities for fun, well, he might be a bit of a peeper. Apparently his bad point is he's a misery guts, so I guess he's just a moody, creepy old pervert? Master Roshi? Is that you? Let me get to my favorite part. And wait for it, because this man dislikes commercial for wig. Now, clearly that should say wigs, but even with that, what am I supposed to make with this? Is he bald and hates being reminded of it? Does he hate the commercial act of selling wigs to people? Maybe he's grossed out by wigs? This is just an amazingly bad translation, but I honestly just take it all as headcanon for myself. Last of all, his quote is, "Stop in the name of love," which at this point, yeah, sure, why not? Flashman is honestly just an enigma to me. Just a very, very strange robot. Oh yeah, we're actually supposed to be talking about the levels here, aren't we? So yeah, Flashman's level is basically an ice level. All the surfaces are very slippery, honestly more slippery than Iceman's place in 1. I don't really know what the theme is here, other than Ice Cave. And what that has to do with time stopping Flashman, I couldn't tell you. I think the level's supposed to be a maze, as it has lots of routes and dead ends. Except most of the dead ends have Crashman's wall you can destroy if you have his weapon, which we do. So the maze just becomes very unmaze-like. It has this vertical section that if you take the correct routes down, you can get a nice amount of power-ups on the way down. Probably the most notable part of the stage is right at the end, where if you take the rightmost hole, you can pretty much skip the entire last section of the level, which is definitely worth it, as it's just full of sniper armor enemy. And you'll probably lose a chunk of health trying to navigate around them. The Flashman fight comes and goes in, well, a flash. His weakness is, of course, Metal Blade. He's quite a unique room layout. with it all being uneven. But of course, Metal Blade cares not for walls or your flaws, and will find you no matter what. I kind of take him out almost before he gets to do anything, but his attacks are just kind of walking and jumping about, and then he'll occasionally stop time to shoot at you. Just don't do what I did here and then be inside of him when he stops time, or you're just going to take a bunch of hits. Regardless of all that, Flashman and his creepy camera ways get taken down very quickly, and we get the Time Stopper, and we get item free. The final Robot Master is here. Quickman races onto the scene at last. Not so quick really if you're the last one though, buddy, According to this very lore-important and obviously very canon info, Quickman was designed after Elecman. And I guess maybe because electricity travels quickly? It's kind of my only real guess with that one. Quickman's place is actually a pretty cool idea for a level, honestly. You spend most of your time in two separate sections, both based around a mechanic of getting to the bottom of the screen as fast as possible before the laser beams coming in from the sides get you. The first segment is a simple introduction, so you learn the mechanic, be fast, and go down. Yeah, don't worry, missing that set of items hurt me too. The second part of this laser race ramps up the difficulty, and you better be very fast to react to what appears below you. I do have some difficulty here quite often. I find that I'm not very consistent at getting to where I need to be. It's super easy to land in the wrong spot and then just be unable to make it. It definitely benefits from you learning the correct spots for landing, because once again, making it through in one go is very satisfying. Separating these two laser dodging areas is a short but interesting room that offers you a choice. Destroy the fire-throwing enemies, hotheads, and be unable to see where you're going, or try and go around them to preserve the light they give off. It's pretty much nearly impossible to go around them without getting hit, so you'll have to take a bunch of damage to do so. Personally, it's not worth trying to get around them. You might as well just take them out. There are no holes to fall down in this part, and if you just keep running to the right and jumping a bunch, you'll get through the whole dark segment. It's a cool idea for sure, but something that could and actually will be built upon in later titles. The final part is just another Sniper Joe mech nightmare, and then we straight into the final boy, Quickman. Quickman's weakness is escargot. That is a terrible joke. That is a terrible joke. God damn. Quickman's weakness is Time Stopper. But before you just run in and start stopping time on him, you should know that it only depletes about half of his health. Time Stopper is kind of unique in that it's a one-time use before you have to refill all the energy. So you want to be very strategic about how you use it. I already talked about the mechanic of not getting energy back on death. So as you can imagine, if you go into Quickman, use up Time Stop, and then die, you now have to farm a very annoying segment of Armored Joes before getting it all back. Or just go in without it, which honestly I very much personally do not enjoy with this guy. I find Quickman very hard. He moves fast, and his moves are honestly nearly undodgeable to me. So my strategy has always been just get him down to about half health with a buster, and then quickly use Time Stopper to finish him off safely. I usually die a few times before I get him to half health, so it feels like the safer option to save Time Stop till the later half. It's surely not the most efficient way to do it, but it works for me. Most of the time anyway. With that, we are done with the Robot Masters. So guess who's here? The Ear Destroyer himself, Dr. Wily. So, before I say anything about the Wily stages in this game, we have to have a little conversation about the music. Specifically in this stage. But, maybe also about the game overall. I feel like I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is the song most associated with the Mega Man as a franchise. It's been covered numerous times. Some of the covers actually making it even better known than it would be otherwise. I actually thought about using this song as the intro to this retrospective series. And honestly, since I don't have one yet, I may still end up doing that. I'm no music expert. That's why I don't talk about the music too often in these. Plus, also, YouTube has a tendency to just, cut your hands off if you try and do that. But I do get a strong feeling of the culmination of a journey from this song. You've battled your whole way up to this point, and now it's time to head into the antagonists later. The song, for me, conveys a sense of triumph, but also a sense of danger. And you just know that this is the final stretch when this song kicks in. Outside of just the Wily stage song, the whole game has an incredible step up from the original music-wise. I would say the standouts for me are probably Bubble Man stage, I feel like it really captures an underwater vibe just so perfectly. Metal Man stage. It has this almost metallic clang to the music. Plus, it's a banger. On Flashman stage. Now, I don't really like the level, and I don't think the music even fits the theme. I just like the way the tune sounds. Overall, and in conclusion, yes, the music is amazing. So, let's get into the final stretch of this game. Wily Stage 1 is a very short stage, and the main focus here is getting to use the item weapons to traverse obstacles. We come up against some walls too high to jump, so we need to use either item 1 or item 3 to get over them. Another jump requires the use of item 1 with more accurate placing to get up a very small gap. I think you could use item 3 here, but it always ends up landing too high up on the wall for me to jump onto, so I just use item 1. Right after that, we have a huge vertical gap to cross, requiring some very thoughtful placement of item 1 to get across. I personally recommend starting while on the ladder, or you just end up too close to the roof to get onto the ladder. After that, it's a simple climb to our very first boss of the Wily stages. Mecha Dragon kicks off this series of bosses with a decent challenge. You jump onto a set of small platforms, and then it spawns in behind you, chasing you across the level. You need to be very quick when you get into the dragon's area. If you're too far left when it spawns in, then you're just instantly killed. It's very unforgiving, and I wouldn't be surprised if it catches most people off guard the first time. Eventually, you reach a set of 3 platforms. The dragon's health appears, and it's time to take the fight to him. This is the most dangerous boss arena so far in the series. Very easy to mess up and fall. Mecha Dragon shoots fireballs at you that if they hit you are nearly always going to kill you. They don't do a lot of damage, but the knockback on them is so massive that you just get knocked off the tiny platforms every time. I don't really enjoy that any hit just kind of knocks you off. It's a little bit more frustrating than challenging to me than anything else. I do love the angry eyes and those little wings that are just far too small to carry it. Mecha Dragon is weak to Quick Boomerang or Atomic Fire, but I always forget about Atomic Fire, so I just use the Boomerang instead. He got me a few times, but we took him down. Stage 2 takes us to a sickly green area that just looks gross to me. We have a large spike pit that requires item 2 to traverse. At the end of this section, you get 2 choices, first or second ladder. I'm going to recommend the second ladder, because it nets you an E-Tank, and then a bunch of energy refills right afterwards, plus an extra life and another E-Tank right after that. The other choice just makes you waste weapon energy with no payoff. Careful going down the next ladder at the end of this segment, as it has a spike pit right below it. It's a very cheeky game. We get a narrow tunnel full of tiny drills, and I finally get to show off how useful Leaf Shield is against them. The Crushers return quickly, and we get another set of horrible blind drops on the spikes. Just a really horrible old design trope, this one. Before you know it, we've dropped into the boss fight. Meet Pico Pico-kun, the very strange fight that is literally its own arena. You're going to notice that Wily stage bosses are going to keep getting more and more strange as the series goes on. Pico Pico is just a square that uses itself to attack you. You won't know which bits of the wall or floor will come out next to attack, so it's best to just keep yourself situated on the parts that have already come out. It's weak to bubbles, because of course it is. I guess water and electricity or something like that. I don't really know what to say about this boss. It's a room that attacks you. It's weird, and it's honestly not even the weirdest boss in this game. Stage 3 of Wily's Castle, and more sickly green awaits us. Starting us off with a long vertical section, this area has a bunch of items and power-ups all off to the sides that are very easy to miss when you don't know what's coming. In fact, this whole stage should just be called the bad luck if you don't know what's coming up level next, honestly. The real danger here is the underwater section. Bringing back the spike sections of Bubbleman stage, this one cranks up the difficulty significantly. We have to get through a section with some big fish hiding below screen, and small platforms with death spikes between them. The fish are fast, and if you don't know about them, they'll probably get you the first time. But all of that means nothing in the face of this final part. Meet the vertical drop spike-coated wall section. You will die here, I'm not going to kid you. You will die probably a few times. You jump down a hole, and you fall fast. As the screen scrolls down, suddenly there are spikes right below you. Didn't know they were there? Too bad, you're already dead. Get past that, another set right below you, wasn't ready, you're dead. I hate this part. I know now where to fall to get past. Not 100% of the time, I knew, but, still better than nothing. It's cruel, it's old school. You just kind of got to accept it and just get past it. Oh, and at the end of the fall, if you don't stick to the right, there's a cheeky spike that'll finish you off. Thanks, Capcom. Just, really kind of you to do that. Make it past that nightmare, though, and you get a wonderful treat. Look who it is. It's our boy Guts Man. Now, the Guts Tank.
Look how they massacred my boy.
I get the feeling he's just begging us for death the whole time as he flaps his mouth. Weak to boomerang and atomic fire, you just gotta jump up onto his little front shelf and fire away at his just beautiful face. He doesn't really do much in the fight, just kind of rolls back and forth, popping out little shots from his forehead zit. If you stay on the ground during the fight, he shoots missiles out of his chest too, but we don't get to see that as I'm just too good. It's over fast, and we move on. I feel like poor Gutsman just keeps getting brought back in this series over and over. Please let my boy rest, Wily. Please. Stage 4 of Wily's Castle, and we are in Purple Land. I just want to add that I personally hate the stage, as it is the worst level combined with the worst boss. So the key things to go over here is that this stage has 2 distinct sections. The first part, we are going to be traveling upwards, trying to avoid falling through fake floors. You won't know where these are at first, and even when you do, you'll probably just forget where exactly they are every time anyway. It's more of an annoyance at first, making you just have to climb back up when you fall. That is until you reach the spike pit. Now, at this point, you should be saying to yourself, okay, well, so I know there are fake floors, and I know I'm crossing over a spike pit that seems to be stuck in a box, so clearly this is a trap. I did not think this the first time I played, and I just walked right over it and fell into the spikes, and I got very mad at the game that it would do that to me. Usually, I just used item 2 to skip over this bit, but for some reason, I wanted to show off you all, and I played it very risky. I actually don't know where the holes are, I just kind of jump and hope. And today I got lucky. The second section of this stage is the downward journey that brings us back the platform section of Grassman stage, but now with the standard escalation in danger and difficulty. We now have instant kill spikes below, so one fall is the end. The floating heads are back, not too dangerous, but combined with everything else, they could be far more of a danger than before. We now have to jump off the platform at certain parts and get back on, or end up pushed up into the spikes. And the final part involves a jump that requires some pretty decent timing with the platform to jump on and off quickly. Or you can just use item 2, which for some reason I didn't do again. The last stretch here is just horrible. It's a series of Sniper Joes in and out of mechs in small hallways that mean it's too low down to be able to avoid any of their attacks. I really don't understand this part of the level. It feels like it was made to annoy you. If you can manage to get through it without losing most of your health, then I'm very impressed. A Boobeam Trap. No, I'm not having a stroke. That's the name of this boss. A Boobeam. Calling this a boss feels generous. It's more of a death trap disguised as a boss. You have a bunch of turrets on the walls, and the only thing that hurts them is Crash Bomber. After a set amount of time, they'll shoot at you, and it will more than likely hit you. I see this fight as a rush against time. Beat them before they beat you. The key to beating this boss is using the item weapons to avoid wasting any Crash Bombs. If you run out during the fight, then you just have to die. And the worst part, you have to farm those Sniper Joes you saw before, which is why I hate this fight so much. It's very easy to die, and if you used any Crash Bomb energy, you now don't have enough to beat the boss and need to farm or get a game over and replay the whole level. The best solution here is just to make sure you have an E-Tank and make sure you don't waste a single shot. I looked up a guide for the most efficient way to beat this boss before I did this because I didn't want to get stuck farming. I hate this boss, hate the level, hate. Stage 5 of Wily's Castle is the classic boss rush with Wily at the head of it. 9 bosses, all in one go. Get ready for the marathon. First up, Woodman. We have Atomic Fire this time, so you can see how much damage it does. I forgot to mention before, but Atomic Fire is the series' first actual charge weapon. You have to hold it down to maximize its damage. Airman next. The moves are as horrible to dodge as usual, and I ran out of Leaf Shield during this fight, so I got stuck using my Buster. Quick Boomerang is a secondary weakness, so I tried using that, but of course Airman sucks, and his moves are just always going to hit me. I wasted like 2 lives on this dude. Heatman takes us down easily, as Airman already ate up pretty much all our health. So I think I just decided here to get a game over to get all my energy back. This was a mistake, as I remember during the Wily fight, because it means I just lost all my E-Tanks. Okay, second attempt, straight to Airman with a full energy Leaf Shield, and he goes down easily. I get my revenge against Heatman with a few bubbles. Woodman again, burnt to a crisp. Bubbleman refight, same as before. Metal Blade is king. Quickman gives us trouble as usual, and I use Time Stopper way too late, but he goes down. Crashman takes an air shooter to the face and explodes. Metal Man, but now I have his weakness, Metal Blade, which I don't actually use, which is silly as it pretty much instantly kills him, so I just use Quick Boomerang. Flashman last up, He puts up a bigger fight than our first go-around, but Metal Blade does the job. With all 8 defeated, the gate to Wily opens up, and it's his time at last to take on the final boss. Wily Machine 2, a very original name. Its weakness is atomic fire, but for some reason I use Metal Blade. It's not a complex fight. Wily just kind of moves back and forwards, shooting out blasts that arc upwards. I was getting the timing completely wrong here and making a massive mess of things. This is where I actually went to use my E-Tank, and then remembered that I took a game over, and I was now totally screwed because I have no E-Tanks. So my only option I had if I wanted E-Tanks would be to hit stage select, which would mean doing all of the Wily stages from stage 1 all over again, which is just another choice I want to make. This means I have to beat both forms with very few mistakes. Of course, I get a big old game over, and I have to refight all the robot masters again. This game is not a forgiving one. Another boss rush later, we arrive back at Wily. I can't help but wonder how much smoother this would have gone if I'd used the proper weakness. We get the timing down after a few more tries, and we head into Phase 2. Phase 2 once again has a weakness that I did not use, and instead I decided to just tank all the hits and spam Metal Blade. The only change here is the attacks now do wave patterns and are way harder for me to dodge. We ignore all of this, of course, and I just go crazy with Metal Blade spam, and I take down Wily at last. We did it! Or did we? I'm sorry everyone, I lied when I said this was the final boss. The game has one last surprise in store. Wily Stage 6. We fall into a cave with no background music. Just the sound of red liquid drops hitting the floor. They do a stupid amount of damage, so it's best just to not get hit. This whole part has a very eerie vibe to it. At the end of the cave, we come out into a dark room. Wily appears, acrobatically leaping out of his little ship and transforming. What? That's right. Wily reveals his true form at last. An alien. Yep, you heard me right. Wily is apparently an alien. I could only imagine what people thought at the time of this boss reveal. The fight begins, and suddenly it looks like we're in space. None of this matters, though, because we have an alien to beat. He already has one weakness, the bubble lead. Nothing else does damage, I'm pretty sure. So this means we have to get right next to him to actually do any damage. I guess this is one of the aliens from Signs. Man, if only we had Joaquin Phoenix here with a baseball bat. The fight itself is very simple. Alien Wily follows an infinity symbol pattern above us, firing off a shot at set intervals. You need to catch him as he dips down, but just be careful not to touch the boss, as Alien does crazy amounts of contact damage, might be the most in the game. It's not a very difficult fight, but you barely do any damage to him, so it can be quite a long one, especially for a Mega Man game. A few bubbles later, and Alien Wily is defeated. Planet saved. But wait, what is this? Yep, we were tricked. Sorry, everyone. Wily isn't an alien after all. He was just using some kind of hologram projector. Upon defeat, the projector plays this horrible sound for just a bit too long. Wily drops to his knees, begging for our mercy. Show a little backbone. We then get a very strange and kind of somber ending scene. The music playing is not at all triumphant. It's very forlorn. I don't even know if that's the right word. There's an image of a village next to Mega Man walking, and it just flicks through different seasons and weather until we reach sunny skies, and Mega Man looks up to the sky, and then it cuts to his helmet lying on the ground, and Mega Man is gone. I don't really know what the intention was here, but it really looks like Mega Man just dies at the end. Or like he was a ghost all along. I think they were going for a sense of sadness with Mega Man, as he's once again been forced to kill his fellow robots, and he does often seem to resent the fact that this is what he's forced to do, and shows a lot of like remorse afterwards. But like, why the weird death implication at the end? After that bummer of the ending, the credits kick in, the music is suddenly very celebratory. Tonal whiplash all over the place. Oh, well, this has been a very long video, I assume. At this point, anyway. While writing the script, I couldn't help but notice how much the length of it had just gone away from me. I just kind of kept writing and just having a lot to say on the game. Hopefully it hasn't been boring for you. You know, if you think I maybe went too into detail this time, let me know in the comments. I'll already be writing the script for the next video by the time I see them, but I will take any feedback into effect for future ones. We aren't done just yet, however. We have the all-important boss rankings to do. 14 this time. 14 this time. So let's do it. At number 14 is Boo Beam Trap. Barely a boss, nothing more than a nuisance. Possibly the worst boss in the entire series. At number 13, Airman. I just hate this fight. The moves can be unavoidable, and that is a no-no for me. At number 12 is Pico Pico Kun. It's basically just a room that attacks you. Nothing exciting here. At number 11 is Crashman. In the history of bosses, I just kind of find him very forgettable. At number 10 is Flashman. I think he might be a creepy peeping Tom, so he's going quite low on the list. At number 9 is Alien. I don't think I could put this boss any higher, as it's just very long and repetitive. At number 8 is Wily Machine 2. It's a very simple fight, but getting the dodging down is very rewarding to do. At number 7 is Quickman. I don't like the fight, but I do love the design and the idea behind him. At number 6 is Bubble Man. I love the design of this boss. Plus, he's the only underwater fighting bot in the universe. How can he go any lower? At number 5 is Woodman. I feel so sorry for this robot. He's being all self-conscious about being made of wood. At number 5 is Heatman. I've always really liked this design, especially in artwork. Fun fight too, I guess. At number 3 is Mecha Dragon. I just love this dude. With his little angry eyes and goofy little wings. More Mecha Dragon, please. At number 2 is Metal Man. The gifter of heaven's bounty, the Omega and the Alpha. At the end of all things, all that remain is Metal Blade. Metal Man's cool too, I guess. And at number 1 is Guts Tank. You knew the second he appeared he was going to be top. Gutsman is the robot that just won't die, for Wily demands it. We all love Gutman. I love this game. Mega Man 2 is an improvement in every way over the first title. It's not hard to see why this is still so beloved by so many people. I'd give this game a 3 out of 10 for difficulty. It's actually one of the easiest Mega Man games, even on difficult. A 9 out of 10 for music. It's hard to give something a full marks just yet, but it has some truly iconic pieces that I can't rate really any lower. And finally, a 7 out of 10 for enjoyment. Boo Beam and Airman knock a few points off this for me. In overall rankings, I'd have to stick 2 right at the top of the list. How could I put it any lower right now? And with that, we're done. I just want to thank everyone who watched my first 2 videos on this and gave me the lovely feedback. I take it all in, and hopefully I can implement it as I go on. Like I said, this is going to be a long video, especially compared to my previous 2. I assume at this point I haven't edited it. I'm just looking at how long I've been recording audio for. I don't know if I want this to be the norm, but I don't really write with length in mind. I just write until I have nothing else left to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future uploads. Don't forget, I also have a second channel, Maximum Milby, where I upload just raw stream footage if you want to watch me just play games. There's a lot of Mega Man on there at the moment. If this actually comes out on Monday, then just know that I grinded myself to dust in editing to get it out on time. I'll try my hardest, but it might and will probably be a bit late. Either way, join me on the next episode of our retrospective on the game that gave us sliding, Mega Man 3. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.